Madame la commissaire européenne.
So, Madam Commissioner, dear Ellen Dalli, so in terms of the French presidency of the European Union, I met today with the ministers of the member states in charge of disabled people, commissioners and European directors, as well as representatives of civil society. And this was for a ministerial conference on disabilities. The objective was to talk about possible actions in order to strengthen the participation of disabled, people with disabilities to participate fully in life. This is a strategy which aims to improve the conditions of citizens with handicaps in the European Union, and it's based on three basic themes: the right for people with handicaps, their independence, their autonomy, equality of opportunity and non-discrimination. The European Union has more than 27,000 handicapped people, so the objective is to allow them to evolve in an environment which is fully accessible and also to support their autonomy. The French presidency of the European Union wants to achieve universal accessibility, and it supports key initiatives in the new strategy of the European Union when it comes to the rights of people, such as the creation in 2022 for a centre on accessibility and also the European Handicapped Card. And this is to guarantee access beyond the frontiers. So a pilot project for the European Card was launched in 2016 in various countries: Belgium, Cyprus, Estonia, Finland, Italy, Malta, Romania, and Slovenia. So the member states are free to decide who can have this card based on their definitions of handicap, and they can also determine how it is granted. So this has allowed us to show the advances that have been made. The ambition of the European Union is to strengthen the power to act, so that each person can build their own pathway in life, and the right to school, higher education, and also training for jobs, and of course including apprenticeships as well. So we have exchanged on the different policies implemented in the member states of the European Union, and also on the initiatives that have been developed. And this was in line with the Erasmus Plus program. So it has a specific budget, 26 million. The new Erasmus Plus program is much more inclusive, more innovative, but also more digital and more ecological. So it provides for the additional costs of handicapped people and also their assistance to participate. So we have reaffirmed the need to support handicapped people throughout their life and also their life projects in university in terms of professional training, but also by encouraging their access to learning. So this day was marked by exchanges around a European perspective for autism and also neurodevelopment disorders. More than 5% of children are born every year with an NDD throughout the world. Research on NDDs is a domain which is evolving constantly in Europe and is also priority for science. We talked about projects which are already European. I think it's important to mention those. The Euronet Europe project. This is a network of people to organize multinational collaborative research in various fields of neuroscience. This is an Innovative Medicines Initiative as well, launched a major appeal for personalized medicine in terms of autism, EMS to trials. This is a European research program which aims to create a pipeline to develop and test new treatments for ASD with the participation of stakeholders and the people involved and their families, and involve them in the clinical trials. Many initiatives already exist and show the true interest of this. And this is also part of the European research area on autism and on NDDs. We should always, and this was repeated, we should always involve the people involved themselves in each step of the research. During this conference, we talked about a major aspect of handicaps which is being carried at European level. I'm talking about reinforcing their access to the labour market for handicapped people, and also we also have the employment package, which is to be launched in 2022. So this is a key initiative of the European strategy, and it invites the member states by 2024 to set objectives to increase the employment rate of handicapped people and to reduce the differences with vis-à-vis people without handicaps. So the number of people with handicaps working is still low. So there are still many obstacles, such as the stereotypes, the lack of workplaces being adapted, and also access to employment. This is a priority for some of the European activities for handicapped people. So having looked at the role of public services, we also talked about the different initiatives which could be rolled out across the European Union. The example of the Duo Day, dear Eleanor. So this was supported by everybody, the job coaching, which encourages employers to recruit handicapped workers. That really is a trampoline into work. So this trampoline was developed recently. So this is an innovative proposal, and the person who is taken on has a coach with them. So this is how they can get into a job and how they can progress and how they can stay in the job. Also, I'd like to conclude by saying and having thinking about the Ukrainians, particularly the people who are handicapped. They're living in fear and living in war at this particular time. So on behalf of the French presidency of the Council of the European Union, I'd like to address the Ukrainians, particularly those people who are handicapped. I'd like to express our solidarity with those people. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and good evening.
Merci, Madame le Ministre. Bonsoir. 87 millions de personnes au sein de l'Union européenne vivent avec une forme de handicap. Et nous devons nous assurer qu'elles peuvent profiter de tous leurs droits et vivre comme les autres dans leur vie. Ces personnes en situation de handicap continuent à faire face à des obstacles au jour le jour.
For groceries or online, or visiting the doctor is still a challenge for many. Only half of all persons with disabilities are in employment, compared to 75% of persons without disabilities. Over 1 in 5 young people with disabilities leave school early, compared to 1 in 10 of those without disabilities. So the need for action at all levels is clear. We must ensure a fully accessible environment, inclusive education, and access to quality jobs. And the recovery from the pandemic must be fair and inclusive. I thank the French presidency for organizing this ministerial conference, where we had the opportunity to discuss our actions. Good practices in one country can inspire action in another country and at a European scale. I also thank State Secretary Sophie Cluzel for her constant dedication to promoting the rights of persons with disabilities at the national and EU level. So thank you. 1 year ago, the European Commission adopted the EU strategy for the rights of persons with disabilities. The strategy continues to align the EU's disability policy with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, to which the EU and all member states are party. Our work is ongoing to deliver across all its themes. Accessibility is a precondition for the full participation of persons with disabilities in society. The European Accessibility Act, adopted in 2019, has been a milestone in this area. We will continue to support member states in ensuring accessibility, identify gaps, and discuss the need for further action. The Commission will also launch Accessible EU, a European resource centre to increase coherence in accessibility policies and facilitate access to relevant knowledge and good practices in the EU. Free movement is a cornerstone of EU integration, yet persons with disabilities often face barriers when exercising this right. Next year, we will propose the establishment of a European disability card with a view to facilitate mutual recognition of disability status across all 27 member states. The card will build on the pilot project, which you mentioned, implemented in 8 member states. An inclusive labour market providing more and better jobs for persons with disabilities is our objective. Today's conference was a landmark to shape the Disability Employment Package, a flagship initiative that we will launch later this year. We also call on member states to establish targets for increasing the employment rate of persons with disabilities by 2024. We count on the support of the French and Czech presidencies and all member states to advance in this direction together. To deliver on our strategy's ambitions, we need joint efforts at all levels. In the newly created Disability Platform, we reinforce our cooperation with the member states' organizations of persons with disabilities and civil society. We also call on member states to adopt ambitious national strategies to foster the implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and of the EU Disability Strategy at the national, regional, and local level. I am determined to continue working with member states and all relevant players to ensure the rights of persons with disabilities in a union of equality. I thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la...
Thank you, Madam Commissioner Hélène Dalinet. Thank you, Minister Cluzel. We will now move to the questions, take questions from the room. There's journalists who would like to ask a question. Please give your name, the title of your media, and ask a question. Thank you. And then we'll go to the Zoom questions if there are any.
Alors, nous commençons d'abord.
So we're going to start with OSPI Media. Emmanuel Deplace, OSPI Media. So I wanted to know, in terms of the autism strategy, are we moving towards a European commitment when it comes to research? Can you explain the objective of the meeting today and what you expect from that? Well, today, Catherine Barthélemy, who is the director of a scientific interest group in France, was able to explain to the different ministers present and the different European commissioners the strategy that we have in France in terms of organizing this first phase, the first axis of the European strategy, which is to put science into our public policies. And so we looked at the different cooperations and collaborations that exist, and we said that we had to move faster to work with pluridisciplinary teams, amongst other things, so that we can publicize the current cooperation. So allow people to find out about this cooperation and collaboration which is taking place and which is at the heart of European research. And Frédérique Vidal mentioned this in a video because she wasn't able to be present. So she talked about the cooperation that already exists, the action that France is taking. And above all, we were able to exchange on the different European ambitions without necessarily fixing or setting specific actions, but we wanted to show that there was consensus to accelerate this European research. Next question. Emmanuel Dalseco, handicap.fr. With a microphone, please. So you talked about a new platform for disabled people. How will this actually come into being? And Accessibility Europe, are these two different things? Accessibility Europe is a European resource center which is being set up and which is being increased so that European people can have access to all those resources that already exist. Perhaps you'd like to expand on that.
This is strategy, because there we can put all our resources and knowledge and information and data which we have in order to be able to work on better policies, this sharing of knowledge and of information from the different representatives of persons with disabilities and from the different member states, and in that way we can have this platform where we can share all this and produce better legislation and better policies.
Mais ça sera destiné au grand public?
But will it be for the general public?
Des infos grand public?
Aux institutions.
Yes, for the general public, for the institutions, open data. And I'd like to talk about something else. You mentioned roundtables, and we can see a lot of disparity when it comes to work on the policies that are carried out in the different countries. How will you manage, how will you mobilize, perhaps even bring together, harmonize the measures that have been implemented by some countries which are much more advanced than others? How can you kind of push this movement? Well, this we have to look at what works. For example, Luxembourg talked about its desire to have inclusion assistance, but then they didn't have time to do this because of the health crisis. We use job coaching, and we can see that this works. And so this job coaching has been rolled out. So this is something that we can all do together. So what is the profile? We have to work on training of these job coaches make sure they get university diplomas so that we can, and we exchange on the content to move more quickly. So I was able to speak to the Belgian minister who wasn't able to be present. She is implementing a strategy. Some countries have quotas, some don't. So obligation when it comes to employment. So the point of this conference today was to see what the positive impacts are of this or that policy. And some ministers mentioned that this will allow us to avoid and to miss out some steps. What has been rolled out generally is that we must achieve results. And this has been said several times. We have to accompany the employers and handicapped people. So this it was agreed on generally. So how can we make disabled people more employability? This is the point of inclusive education, Erasmus Plus, and how do we accompany the employers? Well, of course, perhaps we should roll out job coaching and also awareness raising, and this was the case for many countries. Why don't we have a European campaign for disabled people on employability? So these are some open ideas that we are working on for the employment package to come up with these axes and accelerate the good practices which are having a good result. Sorry, there's no microphone. Have you seen a change in terms of 2 years ago, the first ministerial meeting when it comes to mobilization and progress? Well, that was in 2018, and then we had 2 years of the health crisis. But however, in many European countries, I think that mobilization that took place 3 years ago has had effects because disabled people have been they were impacted in many countries by the health crisis. So it's general mobilization which has allowed us to come up with these measures and also to try and include disabled people more in jobs.
Nous passons maintenant à la...
So we're going to the question from Mr. Rama from United States Press Agency.
Hi. Thank you for the brief and thank you for this amazing day. I mean, I learned a lot. J'ai deux questions pour vous, Madame la Ministre, et pour Madame.
I have two questions for you, for the Minister and for the Commissioner. So, first to the Commissioner.
That disability card will bring some other, maybe better benefits to the disabled. Once put in place in Europe, what's the added value that you foresee? And as far as the exchange that we had from the other countries, we see that there are more advances. And how do you think you're going to optimize this? I mean, this platform that you're talking about, you're going to transfer technologies, or you're going to transfer knowledge, or you're going to transfer the people, the free movement of the people? Because for some countries, it looks like it's going to be cool to be there and to be more accessible and be in inclusive pattern. Pour Madame la Ministre.
Now for the Minister, or perhaps I should wait for the first question to be answered first.
So about the mobility card, yes, of course. All our work is about inclusion and about accessibility. So obviously, if you have this card and this card is helping you in your quest for accessibility and for inclusion, this is the idea, of course, to have this card, which will make life easier for persons with disability in terms of inclusion and accessibility. So obviously it will improve the lives of persons with disabilities in this sense. We have seen from the pilot project that it was, this card was a success, and we would like to see it that all member states will be party to this card, and in the sense that it will improve inclusion and improve accessibility for persons with disabilities. As for the platform, the more knowledge and experiences that we can share, and you know, as I was saying earlier, the better our policy formulation will be. And of course, there's the strategy, which we encourage member states to follow, and we guide, and we are there. And there are the structures to help persons with disabilities and member states to have this kind of guidance in their work towards, as I say, even when we are speaking about employability and how are we making the workplace more inclusive. And this will lead to persons with disabilities becoming more independent, leading more independent lives. So, because essentially that is what our work is all about, in the sense of every person being able to live his or her own life in the way which they want to lead their lives, without their disability being an impediment to them in living a fulfilled life. As Catherine was saying earlier on during her intervention, don't look at the disability, but look at the ability of the person. And that is why we are speaking of this issue with regards to the workforce. We want more persons with disabilities to discover their abilities and be part of the workforce, and thus become more independent and more free to lead their lives. And obviously for our societies to be inclusive, and for our societies also to be not accessible for persons with disabilities.
Thank you. As we speak about talents and skills, I'm going to switch to Mrs. Minister in French. Vous avez beaucoup.
So you talked a lot about Duo Day, which predates what you're doing today. This was created in 2008 in Ireland, before the European Union takes these very constructive and positive initiatives. So it was in 2008 in Ireland, and then it was copied by Belgium in 2010, and in France in 2016. But I've had some feedback from quite a lot of associations in terms of the disabled people who've followed the Duo Day, and they say it's very frustrating, because just one day is great. It's just Disneyland. They're taken to and they do the coaching, and they're prepared.
It's forgotten. So je voudrais savoir.
So I wanted to know what has happened to those people who have been through the Duo Day. What have they become? Did they all get jobs, for example? Do you have any ideas on doing anything which is more sustainable? So the Duo Day is a bit frustrating. It's just a one shot. And I had another question in terms of employment. We in France, we have between 8 and 10% of unemployment for disabled people. And the GFIP organization, which has a budget of of 510 million euros. This is what I read on their site anyway. What are they doing with all this money? Because because the corporation seems to wants to pay a fine rather than taking on disabled people, according. But there is a law which states that they should employ 6% of disabled people. Well, the Juiday is a kind of meeting place, and so this is how it was interpreted at the beginning. So we kind of push open the door for the company, and we get rid of biases, and then we develop. The last Juiday, November 2021, we have 17% of people in good jobs. So it was something which was new in France, and year after year, I think that employers saw this as included sourcing. So a couple of days ago, I was with Lidl, and 10% of people came from the Juiday. So yes, it is changing. So it's a way of kind of getting a foot in the door. And some people, when they do the Juiday, they're already in a job. So it's a way of discovering new jobs. It removes bias on disabled people, and last year the European Week for disabled people made this more visible. So when they actually work in companies, they can show what they can do. So it's just one lever amongst many, and a way of opening the door in companies and to work on the commitment of all the employees. We have a company which makes this a managerial objective, and then this can lead to stages and contracts. So I think that it really is a true lever, and this is why I think, and I've always said that it was the Irish who allowed us to discover this in 2008, and then it was implemented elsewhere. So it really is a true lever and a kind of meeting point. And then talking about handicapped people working in France, 60%, whereas the European average is under 50%. So we have a capacity of professional insertion. We had an employment obligation, which goes back a long way. So we have just 6% of companies that prefer to pay the fine rather than just 6% are left. So we can see that many companies are indeed committed to employing handicapped or doing inclusive sourcing. So this does work. 450 million for the GEFI. So this is for adaptation. It pays for training of handicap reference, and these have been used in companies more than 250 employees, 6,000 companies by this. So we have many different referents which are trained, and so this is a way of transforming things, transforming the HR policy. GEFIP has made a new policy, so a collective form of collecting contributions and the AGFIP has a convention with the state as well, so that we can work with the employers and also have triannual conventions in order to change the situation and set up a strategy. We no longer are dealing with the one shot. It's really about setting up an inclusive HR policy, and so we've set an objective. 1,500 contracts. So we are reaching our contracts. And we talked about training as well, with a massive increase in apprenticeships. Very interesting lever working on professional reconversion.
Cette année, enfin avec Madame Borne.
So it was this year with the Minister of Labour. There's still some questions from the room because we need to move to the Zoom questions. Last question from Emmanuel. So question, there was an appeal from the Polish minister concerning the refugees from Ukraine, because more than 100,000 in this country, many children, and they wouldn't be able to deal with this on their own. Is there a response from France, Europe, or other countries which is in the offing? Well, our Polish colleague, and we have 1.5 million refugees at the door of Europe. So we have adults, children, disabled people. So we said that we're going to mobilize all citizens to show solidarity. And tomorrow I'll be with the associations and the European Forum for Disabled People. Everybody is working on this. And of course, the commissioners are working on this as well at the European level. So I think that we need a European response. And this is what we're currently preparing.
In terms of funding, we are saying that funds can be made available in these situations. We know that it's a very dire situations whereby people with disabilities, women, children, minorities are suffering the most in this terrible situation. So it is our duty to focus on these realities and find solutions as fast as we can to avoid more suffering for these people.
Nous passons maintenant à la question.
So we're going to Alexander Turpin's question, AF Info. So what's as the first jobs that you're doing in terms of the employment package? The employment package, what's the work being done on that?
Sorry, I didn't. I'm sorry. Well, the package will consist of a series. I don't know where to look. I didn't see the. Okay, will consist of a series of practical measures to improve labor market inclusion of persons with disabilities. So it will provide guidance and support mutual learning in 6 key areas. It will be strengthening the capacities of employment and integration services, promote hiring perspectives through affirmative action and combating stereotypes, ensure reasonable accommodation. It will secure health and safety at work, contributing to prevent disabilities, and will secure vocational rehabilitation schemes in case of chronic diseases or accidents, and it will explore quality jobs in sheltered employment and pathways to the open labor market. So it is of the essence that there is cooperation with public employment services, with social partners and organizations of persons with disabilities in this commitment. Of course, this will be key, as we were hearing earlier. What employers sometimes do, they prefer to pay the fine and not employ persons with disabilities. So these are things which we have to address. We address this by social dialogue, by convincing employers and by looking at the abilities and not at the disabilities, because a person has both. You can have the disability, but you also have the ability. So it's a whole culture change which we are looking at here, and doing away with the stereotyping, which automatically, when you are stereotyping, you are looking at a person's disability only, and that is what we shouldn't do. We should look at what the person is able to do as well.
Et maintenant, nous passons à la dernière question.
Now we move to the last question, Carla Bauer for Euractiv. So, hello, in terms of Accessible EU, is there a timeline for that? And when will the centre come into being, and where will it be?
Well, what is that? Accessible. Oh, accessible. Okay, because I'm not. Right. Well, that's it comes out of our strategy as well. It is part of our strategy, and this is what we want. We want to have an EU which is accessible for all. We are working on this, and obviously, the sooner we have this, the better, of course.
2023, maybe? No,
Yeah.
It was
I think so.
voilà, 2023 qui
2023. Sorry, there's no microphone.
Non, la question.
The question from the journalist was also where this will be. Where will it be? In a physical place, or will it be a digital platform?
Of all of the EU member states together.
D'accord.
c'est une plateforme.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. The press conference is now over, and we'd like to wish you all a good evening. Thank you.